couple years ago, I found myself in this predicament. You see, in life, I was experiencing God and I was enjoying the presence of God and I could hear his voice. But when it came to business, he seemed silent, like I couldn't hear his voice. And I didn't really know why. I was frustrated. It was discouraging because I felt like I was doing it myself, which is kind of the truth. I was. But one winter night, while I was driving to Bible study, I asked God, why is it that I can hear you in life but not in business? It came from the depth of me. I wanted to know. And the thing is, his response cut me to the core. It set me on a journey that kind of changed everything, which I'll go into a little bit. In fact, it's a journey where I ended up losing my business. And that's the story I want to tell to you today. But it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. His response when I asked him the question was this: Justin, the reason you can't hear my voice is because you are trying to control it. You see, and here's the problem. See, I had grown up in the marketplace where the marketplace teaches you to be full of greed and lust, where you're just trying to make an extra buck, where you're trying to make more money. It's based on what can you do versus what is God doing. It's a greed-filled environment. And I had been taken up by this greed-filled environment, so everything I was doing was based on my own selfish ambition, what I wanted to do. It was in submission to who God created me to be. And so my business was being built on the back of me instead of partnering with God. And so therefore, I couldn't really hear his voice. You see, again, the business was my baby. It was about me. And because I was trying to control it, my own selfish ambition got in the way of hearing God's voice clearly. It's kind of like a radio station where if you're tuned into a specific station, but you get too far away from it, it starts getting static. And then if there's another radio station that uses the same radio wave, then they start competing with each other. And you start hearing one, then you start hearing the other, then it's like, it doesn't work. It feels very discouraging. And that's what was happening in my life. You see, I was so tuned into my own selfish ambition and the voice of the marketplace that I couldn't hear the voice of God. Because his radio station, they were competing. Selfish ambition in the marketplace versus the voice of God. So that's why I couldn't hear him in my business. And here's the thing I realized is that this applies to both life and business. When we're in a state where we're trying to control everything, where our focus is on ourselves and on what we want to do and all about what we want to accomplish. Again, the principle here is the I principle, where we're just focused on I, me, myself. And when we do that, God's voice grows dim. We lose sight and life kind of takes over. And that's what happened. See, here's a beautiful thing, though, is God never leaves. He's always faithful. So the moment you tune back in, the moment you recognize the issue and you tune back into him, he's there cheering you on. He's there to help you move forward. He's never lost sight of you. He's never seen you as anything less. You were always his from the very beginning. And that's the beauty of God. He's always faithful. He's always for you. See, when I realized this reality that I was trying to control my business, it cut me to the heart and it took me on a journey. And this journey is a journey where I ended up losing my business. And it wasn't easy giving up control because we want to control things. We think we need to do it. But when we let go of control, only until we lose our business and lose our life can we fully grab hold of it again for what it really is. It's the biblical principle. When you lose your life, you will find it. When you lose your business, you will find it. Because when you lose it, you've let go of control and everything that the marketplace and everybody else in culture was trying to tell you. So you can actually grab hold of the real thing, the raw thing, for what it really is. And so therefore you can create and build from your innermost being, from authenticity, from who you're really designed and created to be. But you have to first lose it so you can find it. And that's what happened to me in the end of 2021. Because the end of 2021, at that moment, all my contracts dried up. I had contracts that I thought was going to continue, but they didn't, and they were the majority of my revenue and my income. And I hadn't diversified, which is not a smart business decision because, again, I was working on myself, my own abilities, and my own insecurities were keeping me from moving forward. So I had to give those things up to actually get the thing that I wanted. But those contracts, they dried up, and I was suddenly without work and without income for a couple months. And then while I was driving my motorcycle, I was debating these things, thinking on what do I do going forward? How do I move forward? Because I hadn't have a plan. I was expecting to go long term with these clients. Then God told me to go work for a local marketing company. So that's what I did. At first, of course, I argued with him for a good 30 minutes or so, where I was like, no, that's not going to work. I'm never going to do that. Why would I do that? Like, I'm going to lose everything. What do I like? All this ego stuff was coming up. But I did it. And it was really good for me. See, I gave my dreams and I gave my business, I gave it to God. I gave up control where I needed to be something in it. And over the next year, he taught me things that I needed to learn. Ultimately, here's the thing. He reset my focus that next year. I got to see him again. I got to enjoy his presence again. Where things were blank, suddenly they became clear. Where I didn't feel his presence, where I couldn't hear his voice, suddenly I was hearing his voice again. I was enjoying his presence again. And it was a time of refreshment. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And here's the thing that's interesting. When I gave up control, I gave everything up, and I just started enjoying him again, which working for another company let me actually do that, which is interesting. But I started enjoying him again. When I started enjoying him, all of a sudden my clients started coming back to me. In fact, at the end of 2022, I was making more revenue with my clients on the side, the ones that came back to me, than I was in the marketing company, because that's the goodness of God. It just worked out that way, which is really cool. And so when I started building back up again, I made a very clear declaration to myself and promise to myself that I only want to do it with the Spirit of God. I only want to do it the way that God wants to do it. That I'm not going to take back control. I'm going to keep giving up control so I can walk by the Spirit and create something that's truly beautiful and amazing. And that's my goal. Now, here's the thing, that if you want to do the same thing, if you want to learn how to let go of control so you can actually walk with God in the flow of the Spirit to actually build a business with God and hear his voice again for your business, then this is what I learned in the process. It's ultimately these couple things. And this is the first thing that I learned. One, this is the most important thing. It's not about me. You see, we think life revolves around us, like everything, because we are so in our lives that we only think about ourselves, our own desires, our own failures, our own insecurities, the places where we mess up. We think about ourselves. We have a self-focus, but the reality is it doesn't revolve around us. And when we realize this, that it's not actually about us, that's when we actually find freedom. Because when it's not about us, then suddenly we can be free to live and to do and to be, simply to exist. Because in that existence, we want to build. There's a compassion there that moves us and guides us and leads us. See, when we give up our desires, our failures, our needs, the very core of our ego, and we simply lay it at his feet, fully willing to let go of everything that we dreamed of and to let it go for good. That's what I did for my business. I didn't expect to get it back. But only then, that's when we can actually take hold of the things that matter. In fact, only until we lose our life will we find it, as I mentioned earlier. But here's the thing, when we find it again, we'll find the best version of it because everything extra will be burned off of it. everything extra that it didn't need to be there, everything that was force instead of flow, that was you instead of God, suddenly disappears. It's a version where we're completely free and can create without the hooks of the world within us. You see, most of what we think we want and what we think our issues are only a facade of what's really true. So we must lose ourselves to see past the facade, to see what's actually real, what the foundation really is. That's the first step, was we have to let go of ourselves. Two, second thing I learned on this journey is I can actually trust God to lead. Believe it or not, God is actually really, really good at leading you into fullness, but only if you let him. If you try to control it and you try to make it happen, which again, this is what religion will teach you. It will get you on this cycle, on this hamster wheel of works to try to earn God's favor and try to become something. But when you let go of that hamster wheel where it's based on you trying to do it and you simply look at God and trust that he's going to lead you into fullness, then things actually tend to work better. In fact, he's better at business than you are. And that's the beauty of it. And when we trust him, he will lead us beside the still waters. It's the Psalm 23 thing. He'll lead us beside the still waters where there's peace and there's calm and there's, wow, like this is cool. I get to enjoy the still waters. He takes us through the green pastures to feed and to eat and to enjoy life. And he satisfies our souls. And that's the beauty of things. When you're in a state where you're satisfied by God, where you don't need of anything, but you're satisfied by him because he's good and you recognize his goodness, that's when things start to flow in your business. That's when you'll start hearing his voice and being moved by compassion and being led by love. And all of a sudden things get clear and become more easy. They start to flow. And we find the things that we really love to do, the authentic things, the real things, not the made up things that the world has told us that we need. It's not, we see life through a lens without greed, without just self. Now, here's a couple things that happened for myself when I started to just trust God to lead me. One, I started to actually believe my own abilities again. Like imposter syndrome started to leave because I started focusing in on him and what I'm created for and the compassion that he gave me for the people that I'm called to serve. And when I started focusing on that, all of a sudden, the imposter syndrome left because it was not about me anymore. Because imposter syndrome comes when we think it's based on only our ability. But when we recognize that he's the one working through us, then all of a sudden it's not there anymore. Two, I actually got clarity on what I really wanted, not what the world was trying to tell me I needed. That's another thing that happened. When we give it to him and we give it up, all of a sudden, whoa, that's what I really want to do. That's why I'm creating these videos. Because it's something that I actually really love to do and I really want to do, is create videos that make people come alive and build something better and greater. Three, next thing that happens, I gain compassion for the people he was calling me to serve. And this is a really big point because when you have compassion, you have clarity. Compassion creates clarity and it creates passion. Where all of a sudden I had compassion for the people, and so things got a little bit clearer for me because it wasn't based on myself anymore. And I started to show up more consistently with more passion. So that's another thing that happened is I started showing up more consistently with more passion because I had that compassion. And I started thinking bigger, believing bigger, wanting to produce more transformation. Because when we let go of ourselves, all of a sudden, all the hindrances that we had on ourselves and the walls that we had built up around ourselves to protect ourselves are let go of. And then all of a sudden we can dream bigger. Like there's the dreams of God start taking over, and this sea of impossibilities or possibilities, whichever you want to see it, opens up to us because there's so much more we can do. And it's beautiful. Simply put, when we put our trust in God and we trust that he's going to lead us, then we tend to find ourselves. We find the business as it is in its most pure state. And it's the you and the me that's created to be. See, for me, joy returned and life became more happy because I actually gave up control and I just trusted that God's going to lead me. which there's a freedom to that because I'm not trying to force things anymore. I'm just flowing like, oh, this would be fun. Oh, I enjoy this. Oh, compassion is moving me here. It's like Jesus with his ministry, compassion. He was moved by compassion and the miracles happened. In the same way, we get to be the same way. Third thing, so number one is we have to let go of ourselves. Number two, we have to trust God to lead us. Number three, we have to recognize that when we trust God to lead us and we let go of ourselves, that God is actually the best strategist and promoter, period. See, in that place of trusting God, people I could have never tried to get in front of sought me out. Like I got clients I didn't try to get because God promoted me. I got collaborations that happened that I didn't try to make happen. I was just there serving people and loving people and enjoying life. Clients that came to me that I never tried to get. It was a flow. There was an ease to it. Things fell into place. And all I did was practice what I call strategic goodness, which is really a practical way of showing up for the people in front of us by being moved by compassion, where we take time to identify where they're at, meet them there with full empathy, and then give them the best things for them in the moment, where it's about the people instead of ourselves. And when we put our focus off of ourselves and onto the people we're serving, all of a sudden things open up. There's favor there, there's gratitude, there's things that happen naturally. And that's it. I just showed up with a heart of serving people, and God brought about the promotion and the strategy to go along with it. For example, recently as I was worshiping, I saw this vision of myself sitting in front of the computer like I am right now, and I'm teaching and I'm making videos. So I'm like, oh, cool. I should start making videos. So guess what? I started making videos like 2 weeks later, which is the start of this YouTube channel. Another time, I met with someone in business that I immediately clicked with, and we ended up partnering together to do a 5-day challenge. And it turned out amazingly. There were so much things that I learned from it. And the reality is I would have probably never done that challenge if I would have just done it myself. I didn't have that partnership happening. See, God knew that and put someone out there to push me forward in the way that I need to be pushed forward, because he's really good. He's a good strategist. He's a good promoter, and we can trust him. And that's it. Like, those are the three things. We have to let go of ourselves. We have to actually trust that he's going to lead us, and we have to believe that he's going to be the best strategist and promoter for ourselves. When we do that, things start to go with more ease. Things tend to happen with more fun and more joy and more love and compassion. See, through this all, in the midst of all this, as I was learning to do business again with him in the beginning of this year, 2023, as I was learning to do business together with him, there was a period in the middle of this year where my eyes were off of God again. I became self-focused and went into discouragement and disappointment and these different things that came up. My emotions were in the way, and I shut him out for a couple months. Again, my radio was tuned into myself instead of God. And it was really a hell of my own making. That's how we experience hell on earth. But when I let go of the emotions I was feeling and I gave up control of them and I gave them to God, he was right there waiting to help me walk through them, to actually deal with them well, to be healed from them. See, he never stopped believing in me. In the midst of this process, this struggle, his belief never wavered. And even though I messed things up and there's things I could have done differently during this time, he's really good at righting mistakes. He's better at it, in fact, than I am at messing up. Even though there are things that didn't go the way I hoped, he restored hope. And the future is brighter now than more than ever because I gave it to him and let him take over. And it's easy there. There's a flow there. There's a compassion there. There's a goodness there. And his best is always there chasing me down. All I need to do is let it catch up to me. Because we tend to run forward ahead of it, trying to make things happen. He's like, no, rest. Rest in me and let my best catch up to you. So you become everything that you're created for. And here's the deal. I'm excited for this next year. I'm excited to see what I'm going to build with God. Like I have ideas and desires and dreams now that are refreshed and they're full of compassion. And I want to just serve people. And that's the beauty of all this coming together. And if you're listening to this, you're reading the article version of this, the newsletter version, or you're listening to this video, here's the thing. I'd like to build with you. If you're listening, chances are you're somebody I want to build with because we want to do this thing with God. And so somehow, some way, I want to build with you. Let me know in the comments. Like, how can I help you build a simple, transformational business with God where we're hearing his voice and we've let go of control and we're trusting him to guide and to lead, and we're living from the flow of the Spirit instead of our own selfish ambitions. Would you like that? Tell me how I can help in the comments.